is that I was writing about the 10 years of floundering through my dating life and not figuring out how to be with a woman.
Remember when a romantic comedy could start an argument that's still going on 30 years later? Well, in 1989, When Harry Met Sally hit theaters, it asked the one question that nobody could agree on. Can men and women really just be friends? It follows two people from a cross-country car ride through 12 years of near misses in New York, bickering their way from strangers to friends to something more complicated. It stars Billy Crystal as Harry Burns, Meg Ryan as Sally Albright, Carrie Fisher as Mary, and Bruno Kirby as Jess. Directed by Reiner and written by Nora Ephron, it became one of the most beloved rom-coms ever made and basically wrote the blueprint for the genre. Today we're going to count down 15 weird facts about When Harry Met Sally that even longtime fans may not know. And before we start, do us a favor, like the video, subscribe, and tap that bell. It genuinely helps. And stick around for number one, because the raunchiest scene in the movie won over a very famous member of royalty, and you'll never guess who. Let's get into it, because we've got you covered. We know that you're having what she's having. Number 15. Harry Burns was almost played by someone else. Before Billy Crystal got anywhere near Katz's, the role of Harry Burns made the rounds through half of Hollywood, and every big name handed it back. Tom Hanks was the strangest pass. It looks like a no-brainer now, except Hanks read the script and couldn't figure out why this guy is so miserable. He was mid-divorce from Samantha Lewis, and by his future wife Rita Wilson's account, thrilled to be single. So a story about a man emotionally face-planting through New York after a breakup, it simply didn't land. To him, anyone going through a split should be relieved, not wrecked. Albert Brooks passed for a different reason. He loved sharp comedy, but thought the neurotic New Yorker energy ran a little too close to a certain other filmmaker's whole brand, and he didn't want a career's worth of comparisons. Reiner also offered it to Michael Keaton and Richard Dreyfuss. Sit with that for a second. Batman and the guy from Jaws taking turns arguing whether men and women can be friends. It doesn't really track in my mind. But then Crystal walked in and gave Harry the thing that bigger names couldn't: warmth under the cynicism. Plus a running list of contradictions. He's funny, vulnerable, charming, and deeply annoying, often in the same breath. You understood why Sally wanted to strangle him and exactly why she kept calling back. Number 14. Harry and Sally were basically Rob Reiner and Nora Ephron. You strip away the romance, and When Harry Met Sally is really an argument between two real people. Its director and its writer. Everything but the falling in love part came straight off the pages of their actual lives. Now, the Harry side you may already know. Post-divorce Reiner poured his lonely, cynical, overthinking single years into the character, to the point that Ephron flatly said that Harry was basically Rob. But Sally is the half that people forget. Reiner didn't hand Ephron a finished script. He handed her hours of his rawest thoughts on dating, and she handed back a counterweight built from herself. Where Harry was chaotic and gloomy, Sally was structured, optimistic, and in control of every last detail. Two people who saw dating from opposite ends of the telescope. So what looks like two characters debating whether men and women can be friends is really Reiner and Ephron, who'd spent years having that exact argument, handing their sides to proxies and letting them fight it out for 2 hours. Harry takes the cynic's corner and Sally takes the believer's. Neither fully wins, which is really the point. Audiences spent decades arguing over whether Harry and Sally actually belonged together, while the two people who dreamed them up had already staked out both sides of the fight. Number 13. Billy Crystal rewrote more of Harry than you think. Harry Burns wasn't written by just one person. By the time When Harry Met Sally hit theaters, Billy Crystal had quietly helped shape the character into someone far funnier, warmer, and more human than he started on the page. A surprising amount of Harry's best material came from him, much of it off the cuff. The Katz's Deli scene was only meant to be Sally explaining that women fake it, until Meg Ryan pitched the upgrade. Stop explaining and start demonstrating in a packed restaurant. The drawing game scene was improv too. Ryan's scribble of baby talk got wildly misread as baby fish mouth. Bruno Kirby blurted it, and Harry kept the nonsense alive by insisting that it was sweeping the nation. Now, even the Big Finish leaned on him. Harry's New Year's speech, the part about loving how Sally's nose crinkles when she looks at him like he's nuts, that came largely from Crystal, not the script. None of it was in Ephron's original script, and today, it's impossible to imagine Harry Burns without it. Number 12. That phone scene nearly drove everyone crazy. Now, the four-way split-screen call looks like the easiest thing in the whole movie. Harry and Sally each phoning their best friend to dissect the night that they slept together, all four overlapping in perfect rhythm. That breeziness took 61 takes. Now, most directors would have shot each actor alone and then stitched it together. But Reiner refused, convinced that the comedy would die the second the timing felt fate. So he built 3 bedroom sets side by side on one soundstage and had a technician wire them with working phone lines. So when Crystal picked up, he really was talking to Bruno Kirby, and Meg Ryan was really hearing Carrie Fisher live. Now the catch was brutal. 1 static shot, no cuts, 4 pages of dialogue, 1 flubbed word from anyone, and all 4 went back to square one. And they got deep before it fell apart. Around take 50, they finally nailed it cold. And then a sound guy caught it. Birds had snuck into the rafters and chirped all over the audio. 50 takes in, and we're back to square one. A few takes later, they were home free again. The 4 phones clicked down one after another in perfect sequence. The scene basically finished. And then Bruno Kirby, holding the very last line, blew it. You can hear the soundstage groan from here. Reset. So it took until take 61. The reward was barely 90 seconds on screen that nobody watching ever really noticed as hard. Number 11. Meg Ryan's laugh in the museum scene was completely real. The museum scene is Crystal improv at its finest. Strolling through the Met, Harry drops into a ridiculous Eastern European accent. And then he has Sally parrot a line about too much pepper on his paprikash. And then caps it with a fully improvised pecan pie. It's so ridiculous. None of it is on the page, and none of it is something that he warned Ryan about. That is why her reaction is the real story. You watch her closely, and you'll catch the exact second that she nearly loses it. That glance off to the side is Ryan checking with Reiner, silently asking whether she's allowed to run with this, but he just waved her on. So she stayed in it and dissolved, trying to keep a straight face through pecan pie. You're probably doing it right now. That's the take that made the whole movie. A laugh caught that off guard is the one thing that you can't script. So Reiner kept the genuine one and never looked back. Number 10, those older couples weren't making up their love stories. The sweetest thing in When Harry Met Sally has nothing to do with Harry or Sally. It's those older couples on the couch. The ones who keep interrupting the movie to tell you in perfect deadpan how they met 50 years ago. The catch is that they're actors, but the stories are completely real. It started at a dinner at Alan Horn's place, Reiner's partner over at Castle Rock. Horn's father, Sol, was the quiet one at the table, so Reiner tried to pull him in by asking how he met his wife. The man lit up. Turns out he'd spotted her across a restaurant decades earlier. He told his buddy that he'd marry that woman, and he did. 2 weeks later, and he's still married 50 years on. Slightly faster than Harry and Sally's 12-year courtship. Now, that story became the first couple that you would see in the film, and the whole framing device of the movie, too. From there, Ephron just ran with it. Every time she hit a wall on the script, she'd roam the production offices and just interview whoever was around about how they, or their parents, fell in love. She gathered a pile of true stories, reshaped the best ones, and then Reiner reshot them with actors delivering the lines. Number 9. Harry and Sally's sweetest scene came straight from real life. One of the most intimate moments in the movie has no kiss in it. It's Harry and Sally in separate beds, watching Casablanca on their own TVs, bickering about it over the phone like a couple who had done this 100 nights running. Ephron didn't invent it. She borrowed it from Reiner and Crystal, who really did call each other up, turn to the same channel, and just watch whatever was on from their own apartments. A watch party. Decades before streaming, figured out how to charge us for it. And the ritual quietly nailed something that Harry and Sally kept refusing to admit. That people who insist that they're just friends don't reorganize their nights to watch the same old movie together over the phone. That's couple behavior. They just hadn't caught up to it yet. Number 8. The movie spent years trying to figure out its own name. Now, for most of its life, When Harry Met Sally wasn't called anything close to that. It cycled through a pile of names while everyone involved quietly wondered what kind of movie they were even making. A friendship story, a dating comedy, or just 2 people bickering across 12 years. The answer, eventually, it was all 3. Ephron could not lock down a title to save her life. The working name early on was Scenes from a Friendship, a nod to Bergman, which tells you how seriously they took themselves. And the reject pile kept growing. Boy Meets Girl, Just Friends, It Had to Be You, Harry, This Is Sally. Half of them sound like forgotten TV movies, right? The other half sound like bad greeting cards. But Ephron's own favorite was the plain and tidy How They Met. Reiner, though, he wasn't sold on any of it. The stalemate ran so long that Reiner turned naming the movie into a crew contest, with a full case of champagne for whoever cracked it. When Harry Met Sally, it rose to the top, clean and catchy. Nobody's totally sure, though, who won that bubbly. But anyways, Ephron never fully made peace with it, and she really never forgave the ellipsis. Those 3 trailing dots at the end, that was Reiner's call, not hers. So the beloved rom-com title in the genre is one that its own writer side-eyed to the very end, punctuation included. Hey, quick breather. If you're enjoying this trip back to Harry and Sally's New York, hit that like button. It tells YouTube to push more deep dives like this to people who'd actually get the reference. All right, let's get back to the countdown. Number 7, the happy ending only exists because Reiner fell in love on set. The most swooned-over ending in rom-com history almost didn't exist. Reiner's original ending sent Harry and Sally walking off in opposite directions. A quiet goodbye. No speech, no reunion. He figured that was the honest call. Then, the shoot rewrote him. During pre-production, he spotted a magazine cover and told the cinematographer, Barry Sonnenfeld, that he was going to call the actress on it. But Sonnenfeld shut it down cold. "You are not calling her. You're going to marry my friend, Michelle Singer." When Singer turned up on set, with Billy and Meg mid-argument over a brownstone stoop, Reiner was gone in about 2 seconds. So he and Ephron scrapped the lonely goodbye for the New Year's Eve dash. The guy who'd built a whole movie on the idea that it never works out actually talked himself into the opposite ending. On the record, mid-shoot, he and Singer married in 1989, the same year the film opened. Number 6, when the other Harry met the soundtrack. The movie minted a second Harry, and this one actually could sing. When Reiner needed a sound for his New York rom-com, he wasn't hunting for a star. He accidentally made one. A friend of his, the drummer from Blood, Sweat, and Tears, slipped him a tape of a 21-year-old piano player that nobody had heard of. Reiner hit play and heard early Sinatra coming out of a kid that was barely old enough to rent a car. That kid? It's Harry Connick Jr. He handed him the soundtrack. No pressure at all. Just carry, the whole mood of a whole movie and make It Had to Be You sound like it was written for this exact story. Connick pulled it off with a big band behind him, and the music slid under every scene so smoothly that nobody noticed how much work it was doing. Then, it took a life of its own. The album went double platinum and won Connick his first Grammy. He went from playing half-empty rooms to walking through an airport and hearing his own record on the speakers, while strangers turned to stare. 2 Harrys walked out of this movie better off than they walked in. One fictitious and one very real. Number 5, Sally's high maintenance orders were 100% real. The funniest running joke in When Harry Met Sally has nothing to do with romance. It's lunch. Sally orders food like she's diffusing it. Dressing on one side, ice cream on the side on the side if the kitchen allows it, and none of that was cooked up by a writer. It was Nora Ephron, transcribed. Early in development, Reiner and producer Andrew Scheinman kept taking Ephron to lunch and watched her negotiate the menu like a hostage situation. Every ingredient customized, every substitution itemized, almost everything landing on the side. She had no idea that it was funny. She was just eating. This is how she did it. Reiner watched her do it enough times and finally told her straight, that is going in the movie. And it did. Sally became a woman who wants things exactly the way she wants them, with Harry slapping a 2-word label on it. High maintenance. The showpiece is the diner order, where Sally requests apple pie a la mode, with the kind of fine print that needs a lawyer. Heated, ice cream on the side, strawberry, not vanilla, and if the whipped cream's from a can, just scrap the whole thing. Most waiters would have needed a flowchart, but that order is doing real work. It's pure Sally, controlled and precise and exact, while Harry treats his whole life like a sandwich that he just kind of grabbed on his way out. That gap is the entire relationship. Stand behind her at the deli once, and you'd want Harry's patience too. Number 4, Billy Crystal had to date his best friend's daughter. The weirdest casting call in the whole movie, and it's hiding in a part that most people forget. Partway through, Harry sees a much younger woman named Emily, and Sally writes her off in about a half a second as too young for him. The moment plays as a throwaway, except for who's in it. Emily is played by Tracy Reiner, director Rob Reiner's daughter. He'd adopted her back in 1971 when he married Penny Marshall, raised her as his own, gave her his name, the whole thing. By the time the cameras rolled, she was 24 and a working actress, cast as Harry's much younger girlfriend. A totally ordinary choice, until you remember who was playing Harry. Billy Crystal happened to be Reiner's best friend of many years, a guy who had known Tracy since she was a little kid, and the script asked him to romance her on camera. Crystal called it slightly awkward, which has to be the most diplomatic phrasing in all of Hollywood history, because the real version is flirting with someone you watch grow up while her dad runs the scene from behind the monitor. Yeah, that's awkward. Emily's barely in the movie. She's a minor girlfriend who mostly exists for a quick jab at the age gap, but off camera, it's the strangest trivia in the whole film. Harry's love life looks like a mess on screen, and Crystal, he took the worst of it in real life. Number 3, Meg Ryan was the odd one out on set. Now here's one that surprises people. Harry and Sally have some of the most convincing chemistry in all of rom-com history, the kind that makes you assume that the 2 actors were thick as thieves off camera. But the truth is, Meg Ryan spent the early days feeling like an outsider. She walked onto a set that already had its tightest bond locked in, and it wasn't hers. Reiner and Crystal were the inseparable pair. And Ryan described that as walking into a relationship that was already built. She called herself the girl on a boy's set. A crew member put the first stretch more bluntly. Very, very awkward. They were careful with her. Reiner and Crystal went out of her way to make sure that she felt steady. And by the end, she was right at home, tight with Ephron and Carrie Fisher. But that early gap makes what's on screen wilder, not smaller. The most believable couple in rom-com history got built while one half of it was still finding her footing. That is the flex. Ryan didn't need a years-deep bond with Crystal to sell it. She just needed a great script, a director tuning every beat, and the nerve to hold her own on set that started out as somebody else's clubhouse. More than 30 years later, audiences still can't quite believe that it wasn't real. Number 2, the one scene that turned Katz's Deli into a tourist destination. Katz's Delicatessen didn't need When Harry Met Sally to matter. It already was a New York legend. Open since 1888, it was the city's oldest deli. Famous for pastrami sandwiches the size of a phone book. Can you hear my mouth watering through the microphone? Anyways, Meg Ryan sat down at that one particular table, and the place, well, it picked up a whole second identity. Now, after the movie, people stopped showing up only for the food. They showed up for that seat. The deli scene turned a beloved neighborhood spot into one of the most recognizable locations in rom-com history, and fans started treating it like a shrine. Katz's leaned all the way in. Rather than quietly moving the table along, they bolted a sign above it that reads, When Harry Met Sally. Hope you have what she had, which might be the most New York way imaginable to honor a movie. The funniest wrinkle is that the fame had nothing to do with why Reiner shot there. He wanted Katz's for its character and the chaos of a real and crowded room. One lunch later, 2 people who never touched their sandwiches made it world famous. Not a bad return on just a pastrami order. And number 1, Princess Diana loved the movie more than anyone expected. Now, few people have ever had to sit beside actual royalty while the single most embarrassing scene in their movie came rolling up on screen. But Billy Crystal did. At the 1989 London premiere, Princess Diana was seated right next to him, and the Katz's Deli scene was barreling toward them. The cast had been coached on royal etiquette right beforehand, which somehow made it much worse. Nobody had the faintest idea how the Princess of Wales was going to take Sally's very public demonstration. Reiner later admitted that they were all just sitting there bracing for impact, half expecting polite horror or a stony royal silence. But Diana went the other way entirely. As the lights dropped, she leaned over and whispered that she was slipping her shoes off. Crystal shot back that he was taking his pants off. She grabbed his hand and told him that he was naughty. So much for the stony royal silence. I mean, what? And then the deli scene hit, and the whole theater stopped watching the movie to watch her. The orchestra section twisted around. Everyone wanted to see how the Princess of Wales would take Sally's big number. Diana just let it rip. A huge head-turning laugh. The kind that Crystal later joked would have ended things fast if they had been on a date. She loved it enough that she wanted to take it home. Diana reportedly asked for the film to screen at the Palace for private movie nights with friends, which might be the fanciest endorsement that a raunchy rom-com ever got. And there you have it, everyone. 15 weird and wild facts about When Harry Met Sally. Which one surprised you the most? Well, drop it in the comments, subscribe, and share this with a friend who still quotes Harry and Sally. And until next time, may you find the person who makes you want the rest of your life to start as soon as possible. This is Remember When.